everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am back with my spring and summer book haul. There's not much more that needs to be said. I'll introduce where I got all of these books more as I go through them. In the spirit of showing off my literary t-shirts for today, I have this one, which comes from a Sarah Scribbles cartoon, which if I can find it, I will try to put it on the screen next to me. But in it, she has a few panels beforehand that shows how when she is buying clothing or groceries or any other items, she tries to be quite frugal. But when it comes to books, we make it rain. So I felt like that was an appropriate shirt to wear today in this book haul. Where to start? I think I'll start with the couple of books that I just bought for myself online because I knew I wanted them. And these are just the books that I have not shown off in other videos. There are a few that I have read already, so of course you've seen those in my TBRs and my wrap-ups. Firstly, you will have seen that I loved Anton Dubc's first book, One Enchanted Evening, when I read it in June, and so did my mother when she read it after me. So we decided that we definitely needed to buy the next two books in his series. So book 2 is called Moonlight Over Mayfair, and then we have book 3, A Christmas to Remember. I cannot wait to get to these. These look wonderful. These still take place at the Buckingham Hotel. It's in the years leading up to World War II. Of course, there's ballroom dancing, as Anton Dubc is a dancer himself. And they were beautiful and historically very deep, very rich characters. Cannot wait to get to these. Plus, we were able to class those as household expenses, sort of, because we would both be using them. Then I pre-ordered Silverborn, The Mystery of Morgan Crow, which is the last in Jessica Townsend's Nevermore series. I've been really enjoying the series. It's very cozy, middle grade fantasy about Morgan Crow. And I can't really say much more than that without giving away something from one of the first 3 books. But I am very excited to read this last installment. And then I had some money earned on Pango Books that allowed me to essentially order this book for free, and that is Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. I have been hearing wonderful things about this. This is another very cozy autumnal fantasy book about a woman in her early 30s looking to reconnect with her true self. It looks delightful, so cannot wait to get to that as well. Then we get to what I'm calling the travel books. So first up, my parents went to Arizona in the spring to visit some family, and while they were there, they went to the Poison Pen bookstore. Now, if you're not familiar, the Poison Pen bookstore was a strictly mystery bookstore. They have slightly broadened their repertoire, I suppose, however, because the Poison Pen bookstore is now also famous for being the local bookstore of Diana Gabaldon, the author of the Outlander series. So while my parents were there, they stopped in and brought this back for me. And this book is Clanlands in New Zealand. Clanlands was a show and then also a book that Sam Heughan and Graham McTavish did together, both stars of the Outlander show, where they traveled around Scotland. So in this book, and there is a show that goes along with it as well, they do the same thing but in New Zealand, where Graham McTavish is now living. So I'm very intrigued to read it. Both the first book and series were a lot of fun, so I'm expecting the same from book 2. The other fun part about this one is that it is signed, and it is signed by not only Graham McTavish and Sam Heughan, but also Diana Gabaldon. So that was a lovely surprise. Then one of my friends got married in late May in Cincinnati. So of course we went. And while we had some time before the wedding, we went to the Ohio Bookstore. And I will leave a picture here because I cannot recommend this store highly enough. It is huge. It is 5 floors of books. The owners are very knowledgeable, very friendly, very helpful. They have their own bindery. The man who owns it has been working there since he was a teenager and is now well into his 70s, if not his 80s. The artifacts they have, in addition to their book stock, are incredible. They have newspapers and Life magazine from the 1930s onward in really great condition. While we were there, of course, we had a browse, and their classics section was fantastic. Such that later on at the wedding, I went up to my friend in her beautiful bridal gown, and she asked, "How many books did you buy?" And I said, 9. And she gave me a high five and said, "Well done." So allow me to talk through them. So first up, I found 3 Thomas Hardy novels that I have never read and I have very rarely seen in other bookstores or book sales. I can't tell you too much about these because, as I have learned, the backs of classics can tend to spoil them. So we have first a Laodicean, which I'm not even sure what a Laodicean is, but I know it's a Thomas Hardy title. We have The Hand of Ethelberta, which I always thought was a collection of short stories, but no, it is a novel. I'm thinking of The Withered Arm, which is one of his short stories. And lastly, I found Desperate Remedies. This is the one I'm leaning towards reading first of those 3, just because I know the project that Jen the librarian is hosting, reading through all of Thomas Hardy's works, read Desperate Remedies in June, I believe, and I know a lot of people that I watch who are participating in that really enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to that one. All of them really, but especially that one. Then I also found 6 rarely seen Trollup novels. And again, all of these are older editions, but in beautiful condition. Once again, I know next to nothing about these. I will be going in blind when I get to them. But one is Kept in the Dark, The Belton Estate, The Vicar of Bullhampton, Ayala's Angel, Marion Fay, and Miss Mackenzie. So, like I said, I know next to nothing about those. I do want to read them eventually, but if you have read any of those and you really, really recommend one of them, let me know in the comments and I will push that further up the priority list. Then, not only did I find all of those fantastic books and manage to squeeze them into my very small suitcase, but then in the airport, going home, I found Claire Tomalin's biography of Charles Dickens in this gorgeous hardcover, again, beautiful condition, in the Take a Book, Leave a Book room of the airport. First of all, I love that the Cincinnati airport has a Take a Book, Leave a Book room. And secondly, this was an incredible find, so of course it came home with me as well. Rather heavy to lug through the airport, but fantastic. I love Claire Tomalin as a biographer, so I am really pleased to have this. Then you may have seen Marissa's video visiting the Jane Austen exhibition in New York City that was at the Morgan Library, and we went to that together. So of course I had to pick something up as a memento of that trip. So I picked up Love and Marriage in the Age of Jane Austen by Rory Muir. Now, I haven't read any Rory Muir books yet, but I hear wonderful things about both of his books. So I'm very pleased to have a physical copy of this one, and I think I can access Gentleman of Uncertain Fortune, which is his book about second sons, through the library. So very much looking forward to getting to this at some point. We didn't get to buddy read this for Jane Austen July as we hoped maybe we could, but still looking forward to reading it. Then local library book sale season started around here, so I picked up a stack of books to support my local library. The first is a very unusual find. I found out that there is an Anne of Green Gables musical that exists, and I found this copy of the play at the very least. Yes, it's the entire play, just minus the music. The words of the songs are there, but the music is not. So I'm gonna have to search for the music and do a read/listen through of this, because I love the whole Anne series, as you can see right here. Then I finally found a copy of Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, and I know so many people love this book. This is by far her most popular work. And honestly, that's really all I know about it. I do know that it's done, I think, from 3 perspectives. It's written in a very experimental style, so I'm intrigued. I've liked other Bernardine Evaristo books, so looking forward to this one. Then I also found Diva by Daisy Goodwin, which is her fictionalized account of the life of Maria Callas. Maria Callas is not my favorite soprano, but I know she is for many people and was the diva of the 20th century. And I think Stacey Swearingen really liked this when she read it in the past month or two. So I'm intrigued, given how much I love opera. I'm intrigued to see where this goes. Then I found this book, which is super intriguing, Hotel Sakur by Radhika Dohnert. And it actually tells you the translator right on the front, translated by Alison Leyland. This was originally a novel in German, I believe, about the Hotel Sakur in Vienna. I can never remember if it's Sacher or Sacher, but it's an account of that very famous, very elegant hotel in the 1890s, and the story of one woman's attempt to keep the hotel running after her husband has died. This hotel is, I'm guessing, also probably the birthplace of the famous Sacher Torte. As I've said, I love opera, I love Vienna, I love this era of elegance in Europe in general, but in Vienna in particular. So I am really hoping I love this as much as I think I will. Then I found this copy of 7 Viking romances, and by romances we mean epics, poems of some sort. So I'm intrigued to see what I find in here, how much of these stories I already know through other Norse or Germanic folklore, and how many are new. What are the 7 anyway? We have Arrow Odd, King Gautrek, Halfdan Eysteinsen, Bosi and Herod, Egil and Asmund, Thorstein Mansionmite, and Helgi Thoresen. Okay, doesn't sound like any of them are familiar, but we'll find out. Then I found The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton, which I know is a much beloved series. I've heard some good things, some bad things, but I'm intrigued to see where it lands. This is some sort of whimsical, historical, romance, mystery type series. That's a lot of genres all in one. I'm honestly not sure what era we're in, looking at the cover. The back says we're in the Victorian era. I believe that looking at her dress. I'm not so sure about his dress, but nonetheless. This sounds like enemies to lovers. We have 2 spies/assassins who are supposed to be taking each other out, but presumably a romance blossoms between them. It sounds like a bit of fun. We'll see where it goes. Then, very excitingly, I found a copy of Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I've never actually read it. I'm very familiar with the story, ironically through either Wishbone or Muppet Treasure Island, which I feel like is funnily a pretty accurate interpretation of this story, but I'm very excited to read it for myself and actually find out. It doesn't say that this is abridged, it is a Penguin classic, and it's a decent size as well, so I'm assuming it's unabridged. Really, really hope so, because I really want to read this. Then I also picked up this edition of The Odd Women by George Gissing. Now, yes, if you've been following me for a while, I found a copy of this before, but I like this edition much better. I think it's going to be much easier to read. So I picked up this edition and I will be redonating my old edition. I know so many people have loved this book. I know Marissa has been begging for me to read it for ages. And the only other thing I know about this is that it looks at single women in the late 1800s. Odd as in odd sock without a partner. Then excitingly, I also found a copy of The Light Years by Elizabeth Jane Howard, which is the first in the Cazalet Chronicles. I had planned on reading this series digitally through my library, but now I can at least read the first one in print. Then I also finally found a copy of A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. I read Rebecca Ross's Divine Rivals series through my library this past fall, and I enjoyed them. I thought they were fun. But I've also heard really great things about this series from her. It's, I believe, some sort of Celtic-inspired fantasy series, and that sounds pretty darn wonderful. So this is the first in that series, so I'm very, very excited to have it. And then finally, this one I've already read, but I'm very excited to own a copy of Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is a cozy, sweeping fantasy romance book, and I loved the entire series, so I've been hoping to find copies of them at used book sales so I could own them, and I very excitedly found this first one, so glad to add that to my collection. If you want to hear me talk about these, check out my wrap-ups from the fall and winter last year. I'd say November, December, January. Check those out and I will talk about this series there. So those are all of the physical books that I acquired during the months of about April through beginning of July. Let me know down below if you particularly recommend any of these books, or if you are intrigued to hear what I think about any of these, if you have further questions about any of these, or if you have things to recommend to me based on what I've pulled here. Conversely, if you've picked up any exciting books recently, let me know as well, and I hope to do the same for you. Until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye, everyone.